Morning. Can you hear me now? I understand it was a little quieter a little earlier. The goal was meditative quiet, so maybe we achieved that. We achieved that goal. I didn't have to interrupt your own meditation with whatever I was saying. So, as Peter mentioned, with the message this morning is on transparency. It's the fifth tradition or fifth principle that we're talking about, the principles of Harmony Fellowship. Transparency, again, falls as the fifth one. We're studying that in class this month and had a really enjoyable discussion about that this month. What we do usually is talk about, first of all, the definition of the word, the definition of the principle, because there are a lot of times when I think I understand what a word means, and then I look it up in a dictionary, and I realize, oh, that's what it means. And it kind of takes on a bigger connotation usually, or maybe a more definite one than we had known before. And when you look in the dictionary, the word transparency means being transparent. Well, that doesn't help much. The state of being transparent. So I had to go a little further and look up the word transparent. And it means free of deceit, free of pretense, and easily understood. Free of pretense, easily understood. And we look up also some synonyms of the words that mean the same thing as that word, to try to give us, again, some more color on seeing the exact word and how it is defined. And one of the words that was really fun this time that I got out of the thesaurus was pellucid, the word pellucid, and that means allowing maximum light. Allowing maximum light. That transparency opens us up to the maximum amount of light in our lives. Now, we were sitting in class last week, and Penny gave me some information that I was not even aware of, that transparency has more than one meaning for us here at Harmony. When the fellowship was being born, if you will, transparency was chosen as a principle because of again, the attribute itself, or the virtue, if you will, but also had a more practical application to it as well. That transparency for Harmony Fellowship, we are going to practice transparency in the governance of our fellowship. In other words, all the decisions that need to be made on keeping our fellowship running are open to everyone for their input and their review and their discussion. We don't want to create a separate body that watches over Harmony and then the fellowship itself. So we are one as a fellowship, and that transparency allows each of us to take part. And it also encourages us to take part, to be a part of that. If there's something going on that we're not sure about, or we want to see change, whatever, that we take part in that. And we also practice transparency in financial matters. All the money that comes into Harmony, you can know where it goes. You can know where it goes, what areas it's spent on. So we practice transparency. Again, we're a fellowship. We're not a church, if you will. We're a fellowship, and that fellowship takes all of us to make it happen, and allows us each to be a part of the vitality of this fellowship. So we practice transparency in those areas as well. This morning we're going to look at transparency also as again, a state of being, if you will, a virtue, transparency, the ability to live without pretense, the ability to live easily understood by others. It is the ability to live without pretense, to live without trying to convince others that we're something that we're not, can be a challenge at times. So we see this as an attribute of the divine. The reason we put forth transparency as a principle is that we see that attribute as of the divine, that God is transparent, that nothing is hidden from us. The song said we can know everything without knowing why. That all-knowingness. God doesn't hide from us. God doesn't hide information from us. Sometimes if we're not ready for it, grace will protect us from knowing certain things. But things aren't being hidden from us. So to look at this idea of transparency, to look at how it fits in our lives and the effect it can have in our lives, I want to look at a story from the Christian New Testament, the Gospel of John chapter 4. And the story is often called The Woman at the Well. We always like to give titles to little sections of Scripture, and that way those who teach or walk around say, oh yes, the woman at the well. Yes, I know that part, yes. So you have, when you're conversing with those who study. So I'd like to read for you the story and then take a look at the people involved in the story, how transparency worked in their lives, whether it showed, whether it didn't show, and then the results of transparency ultimately in changing one life. Now when the Lord knew that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, he left Judea and departed to Galilee. He had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a city of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. And so Jesus, wearied as he was with his journey, sat down beside the well. And it was about the 6th hour, about noon. There came a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said to her, give me a drink. For his disciples had gone away to the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, how is it that you, a Jew, ask me, a woman of Samaria, for a drink? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Jesus answered, if you knew the gift of God and who it was asking you, give me a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. The woman said, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself, and his sons and his cattle? Jesus said to her, everyone who drinks of this well will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. The water that I shall give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life. The woman said to him, sir, give me this water, that I may not thirst, nor come to draw at this well anymore. Jesus said to her, go call your husband to come here. The woman answered him, I have no husband. And Jesus said to her, you are right in saying, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and he whom you now have is not your husband. This is your truth. The woman said to him, sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus said to her, woman, believe me, the hours come when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship God, will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such the Father seeks to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. The woman said to him, I know that the Messiah is coming, and when he comes, he will show us all things. And then later it says, many Samaritans from the city believed in him because of the woman's testimony. She said, he told them everything I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they asked him to stay with them, and he stayed there 2 days. And many more believed of his word. They said to the woman, it is no longer because of your words that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves, and we now know that this is indeed the Savior of the world. So transparency. Both of them came to the interaction with a different level of transparency. Jesus, of course, being who he was fully transparent. He'd been traveling a long time, walking. There are 2 routes between Judea and Galilee. He's leaving Judea to get away from the Pharisees. Again, they're starting to hound him a little bit, and he wants to get to a place where he's more welcome. So he's moving on from Judea to Galilee, and there's 2 ways to get from Judea to Galilee. One of them is a direct route, walking directly to Galilee, and that route takes you through Samaria and brings you in contact with Samaritans. There's another route, you know, how like a MapQuest, you say, give me this route. No, I want to go via this highway instead. There's another route that avoids Samaria altogether. It's a longer route, but it avoids Samaria altogether. And most of the Jews used that route. They didn't want to be confronted with the Samaritans. They didn't want to have any interaction with them at all because they were at odds with each other. So Jesus took the direct route. Jesus took the direct route and went through Samaria on purpose. And with his disciples were with him at the time also. And we see the transparency of Jesus from the very beginning. He's sitting at the well. He's been walking all day. It's noon. He's been walking all day from Judea to this town, Sychar, and he's thirsty. And the woman comes to the well. She's got a jar because she's coming to draw water for her family to take home to her home. And Jesus says, can I have a drink? And the reason he's asking her is it's not a demeaning command. Some Jewish man is saying to this lowly Samaritan woman, give me a drink. What's happening is this woman has the means by which to draw water from the well. Jesus does not. So Jesus is in need. Jesus has a need that he cannot fulfill himself. He needs to rely on somebody else to do this for him. So he asks her, would you give me a drink? Would you use your jar, your bucket, and draw down from the well and give me a drink? Sometimes that's the hardest transparency to practice. When I have a need, when I have something that I need to rely on somebody else to give me, sometimes it's very difficult to be transparent, to be real with somebody and make it clearly understood that I need something from you. I need something from you. So we hem and haw, and well, I don't really need it. It would be nice to have, and if you have the time, or if you're so inclined, and we hem and haw and never just have a very difficult time going directly into saying, this is what I need. This is what I need. And so Jesus is showing this woman what transparency looks like, what the freedom from pretense looks like. He goes on then, later in the story, to be a little more transparent with her. He realizes that there's something wrong here with this woman coming to the well. It's noon. It's about the hottest time of the day. And this woman is coming to the well to draw water for her family. Now, what usually happens is the women of the city would come to the well in the morning when it was cool, and it was a lot easier to draw water from the well. And they would socialize, and they would get together, and they would share selfies and pictures of their kids at the well, complain about their husbands not picking up their socks, and all such things that they would get together and talk about. So it was a social time as well as just a job to do, to fetch this water. And this woman avoided that. This woman came to the well at noon on purpose. She felt she didn't belong. She felt there was something wrong. And when we heard here what Jesus said to her before, that the man you're living with now is not your husband, and you've had 5 husbands before that. Now today that's not as an indictment, but in these days, at this time, and in this small town where everybody knows exactly what's going on with everybody else, it was a source of shame. It was a source of shame and ostracism for this woman. She couldn't feel comfortable mingling with the other women, being a part of the other women. So to avoid that sense of shame, that sense of differentness from them, she avoided them altogether by coming to the well at noon. And Jesus saw this. Jesus saw this. And so he dares to let her know that he sees this, that he understands what's going on. He says, go get your husband, please. And so, of course, she tells him, I don't have a husband. And he tells her, I know. I know what's going on. I understand the situation here and why you're here at noon. Again, he wanted to help her. And to help her, he had to let her know that there wasn't anything hidden. That there wasn't anything hidden. That transparency was a possibility for her. That transparency was a reality. And that he was willing and he was okay with being transparent with this woman in exactly her situation. Exactly what her life, what she was going through in her life at that time. And so he shares that transparency with her. And finally, he goes transparent to another level, and he says, we Jews don't have it right, and you Samaritans don't have it exactly right. It's changing. Our idea of God is evolving. Our idea of God is opening more, so that we realize it's not about ritual and protocol. It's not about, I have to be in Jerusalem to worship God, or I have to be on this mountain to worship God. The truth, that's what we're coming to realize, is that God is spirit and God is everywhere. And if I would want to know God, then I'd live in spirit and in truth. I'd live in that spirit and in truth, rather than keeping all these rituals and things like this where maybe my heart is not enjoined with whatever practices I'm going through. God's cutting through the veil there and saying, I'm experienced in spirit and in truth, not in ritual, not in certain protocols, not in being in a certain place. And so he's letting her know, I'm evolving too. My idea, I'm coming to know this new idea of God. And that can be tough. That can be tough. When you can stand in front of somebody and say, I don't really know. I'm not really sure. This idea of God is becoming more and more, is becoming different. And my conception of God, my picture of who God is changing. That can be exciting, but sometimes it can be challenging on letting somebody else know that in front of you, especially in this type of setting. Now let's flip over and take a look at the women's experience in the well and with transparency. First of all, again, she came at noon. She's hiding. She's hiding from the rest of the village. She's not wanting to be known. She's not wanting to run into them and have a chance that they might talk. Somebody might ask about something or whatever, and so she's avoiding them. And first, Jesus asks her, give me a drink. So he comes to her transparent. And she kind of dodges the question. She said, rather than saying, okay, I'll give you a drink, or no, I'm not giving you a drink. You're a Jew, I'm a Samaritan, I'm not giving you. She answers the question with a question. She said, why are you asking me for a drink? In other words, avoidance. Dodge that question. Have you ever done that? Where you just kind of dodge the question with a question? Somebody's asking you something and you're a little uncomfortable about talking about that, about yourself or in some area, whatever, so you dodge the question with a question? Well, are you sure? And so intimacy is not realized, or the transparency is not shared in that kind of situation. Now, there's one exception. When the salesmen call, then it's kind of fun to dodge the question. Try to get them going a little bit. See, wow, what, really? Whoa. So in that case, we might be allowed some lack of transparency with talking with them. So she is not ready for transparency yet. She's not ready to be honest. She's still got some walls up, some pretense. And so Jesus again continues to talk to her and says, I can give you water that wells up to eternal life, so you'll never be thirsty again. And she says, oh yeah, I'm all for that. Give me this water so I don't have to be thirsty and I don't have to come to this well anymore. Now she's moving closer to transparency here. She's admitting that, I would like to not be thirsty. I would not have to worry about fetching water every day. It's a burden, it's a lot of work. If you can fix that, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. So there's a sense of a real answer in here. But then she qualifies that at the end and she says, so I don't have to come to this well anymore. So it's like, it's really uncomfortable to come out in public to this well. If you can do this, I can hide out and get away with it. I can live in this pretense. I can live in this life that I've created, this lie that I've created about myself, and just be okay with it. If you would just give me everything I need so that I can stay home and just be okay without having to interact with anybody else, without having to go out and do anything. And so she's edging closer to transparency, but she's still hedging her bet. She's still hedging. She's like, I'd really like to get away with not having to do this at all anymore, because it's just really uncomfortable to come do this. And so he continues the conversation, continues to probe and to help her to see herself, to help her to see that transparency is a possibility and what it can mean for her. And he asks, the next question he comes to her with is saying that worship. He tells her all about who she is and what she's done. And she's says, I know that you're not married to the man you're with now, and you have had 5 husbands. And she looks at him and says, Sir, it's obvious you are a prophet. So she's starting to come to this realization. She's starting to relax. She's starting to... Now, there's a couple of ways we can read those words. There's a couple of ways we can listen to what that voice might have sounded like when she said, Sir, you must be a prophet. It can be said in a way that says, Sir, you must be a prophet. You know, kind of facetiously, kind of like, yeah, doesn't everybody know that? And so who are you impressing? You know, who are you impressing? And kind of, again, putting him off, keeping him at a distance. So, you know, or she could be saying it with a sense of wonder. It's like, wow, you really know me. You really know me. And you're still here. And you're standing here. And we're talking. And you know all about me. As we've said before, talked last time, Jesus was a compassionate person. Jesus was a compassionate person. He knows what's going on and is free of judgment. And I think that the latter was more likely the response that she had, a sense of wonder, a sense of awe, that he would know all these things about her. Because later we'll look at her reaction to it, but because, again, he came in that voice of non-judgment, in that voice of compassion that recognized where she was at and knew that there could be better, knew that there could be change. And so she says, Sir, you must be a prophet. Again, the cold walls are starting to break down, and she's starting to open up to herself as well as to Jesus. She's starting to get more honest with herself as well as with Jesus in front. And an amazing thing happens then. An amazing thing happens because she is met with this transparency, because she is met with this freedom from having to pretend. And Jesus comes to her this way and says, I know, and it's okay. She's starting to let down her guard, and a wonderful thing happens. All those people, all that time that she has spent running from these people, coming to the well at noon, staying away from these people, feeling ostracized by these people, feeling different, like she was outside their ring, outside their social grouping. All of a sudden that went away. And she runs into the village. She says, come and see who I've met. Come and see who I've met. He's told me everything about myself. He knows everything about myself, and he told me all about it. To go to the place where not only are you able to see it within yourself, but you can, again, join community. You can, again, join community, free from, again, because they still know her. The rest of the community still knows her. And so what courage it took. What courage it took and what freedom, the transparency that was shared with her, what freedom it brought to her that she could go back to these people in the village and say, listen, there's something special out here for you. There's a guy out here that knows everything about me. I think he's a prophet. I think he can do something special for your life as well. Come and see. And that is the next step that happens. Not only is she comfortable going to these people and talking to these people, whereas before she just avoided them like the plague. She avoided any contact with them because she felt ashamed. She felt apart from, different than. Not only does she now feel brave enough, courageous enough to go talk to them, she loves them. She loves them. She's wanting them the best for them. She's wanting the best for them. And so she's able to go to them and say, there's somebody here that can help you, that can change your life too. There's somebody here that can change your life too. God is worshipped in spirit and in truth. God is working to change our perception, our understanding, and the way we live in relation to the divine. Not only was she able to walk past her fear, walk past her shame, she was able to be totally herself. She was able to love her neighbor as herself. I was talking to someone earlier this morning, and I've said it just before, but there's a part in the New Testament where it says, what is the great commandment? And it says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and all your body. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself, the first of the 10 Commandments. And I think that's the wording on that is a little, could be amended to fit better. I see it, rather than being a command, rather than God saying, do this, I think what Jesus was doing was saying, this is the secret of life. This is the secret of life. You do love God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul and all your body. You're one with God. You do love God. And you do love your neighbor as yourself. You can't help it. You and your neighbor are one. That is your default. That is your default. That is who you are every day. You love God with all your heart. You love your neighbor as yourself. If you are away from that, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if things aren't juggled or whatever, it's because you're trying to change who you are. And you're being afraid of who you are. You're not allowing that love to be expressed. That's why we call it holding a grudge. Because in my given default, when I'm hurt, I forgive and I let go. I love my neighbor as myself. If I don't want to, I hold a grudge. I have to take action to make it different. And in the same way, this woman is transformed in this setting when she is met by somebody who knows exactly who she is, non-judgmentally, compassionately, understandingly. She is freed to be herself, to be all of herself, to become a part of the community again, to become involved with the other women, the other families in the community. She's able to express the love that is who she is by wanting them to know the best as well, wanting them to know all that God can be in their lives as well. And that is the power of transparency. That is the freedom of transparency. When I can see inside myself, and I can know all there is about myself, non-judgmentally, with compassion, and know that God does the same, I'm free. I'm free. There's a freedom inside then that allows me to love God with all my heart and all my soul and all my being, and allows me to love you with all that I am. That is the power and the freedom of transparency. Yea, God.